we are doing better now than we were 100 years ago. That doesn't mean to say we don't take our foot off the gas. We have a bunch of bullshit that's been happening. Freedoms are being taken away, liberties are being challenged, and it's terrifying, to be perfectly honest. But that shouldn't result in people losing the thread that what you are doing matters, and how you talk with your community and how you try to raise up your friends, your family members, your brothers, your sisters. Don't ever stop that, because the good's going to win. Hey, I'm Matt Hallas, and you're entering A World Gone Good.
Well, hello, my name's Steve, and this is the place where we shine the light on everyday people making good happen each and every day. Welcome to World Gone Good. My fourth novel comes out June 29th, and you can pre-order it right now on Barnes & Noble website. Cupid's Curse is set during the Valentine's celebration in the 55-plus community of Diamond Glen, where, yes, there has been yet another murder. Honestly, why don't these people just move? And why am I critiquing my own writing? Sheesh! Cupid's Curse is part of the Dog Walking Detectives mysteries, which also include Drown Town, Murder en Masse, and Season Slayings. I promise you a good, cozy mystery and a couple of laughs along the way. Pre-order your copy of Cupid's Curse now on the Barnes & Noble website to support this here self-published independent author. And for doing so, I say as always, thank you. Okay, today, buckle in and get ready to learn about geospatial technology, microplanning, and satellites used for good and not evil. This all started with my pal Ruthie, who says to me, she says, "You should have my boss Matt on. He's amazing." Or that's how I remember it, because I found out after we were done recording with this Matt that there are perhaps multiple Matts who work with all of them, and where Ruthie works, and either she met another Matt who is her direct boss, or more likely I misheard that this Matt was the direct boss. The point is that Matt today wanted everybody to know he is not Ruthie's direct boss. I am the boss of Ruthie. Just ask her. Okay, anywho, this Matt here is with us today, and his name is Matt Hallas. And he does work with my friend Ruthie and is a Geospatial Practice Manager at DevGlobal. What does that mean? It means a lot of things, but it means he has a passion for monitoring the health of our planet Earth and its global citizens via remotely sensed data sources. If Matt sounds like a big old nerd, he is. Proudly so. He's going to admit it to you shortly once we get going here. And we as residents on this communal floating rock of ours are all the better for it. So nerd it up, I say, and let's get our smarts on with today's good guest, who's making the world a better place, one microplanning geospatial monitoring at a time. Here comes Matt Hallas to share his good story. So my friend Ruthie moves to London, and I've known Ruthie since she was maybe 9 years old, for real. I'm quite a few years older than her. And her mom and my mom are very good friends, except her mom is 25 years younger than my mom. So it happens. It happens in the world. And we were talking about a bunch of different people. And then she's like, "You got to have my boss on. My boss is the best. This is the best boss I've ever had." So I want to start, Matt, by telling you to fire Ruthie. No, I'm kidding. I want to say...
Not a chance, man. You know how great she is. Not
I
a
do.
chance.
She told me you're the greatest boss ever. Do you hear that a lot? Do you think of yourself as a great boss?
Oh, well, first and foremost, thank you, Ruthie. You are lovely. I assume you're listening, because you don't miss an opportunity to pump up your friends and your colleagues. No, it's hard for me to say. I'm actually quite new to managing folks here at DevGlobal, so I've only been doing it for about 4 years. So it's wonderful to hear. But the funny thing, Steve, is like I'm just a very kind of critical person and trying to always improve. And managers, it's so important. Like it's such a role that when it's good, it's great. It helps people. When it's bad, it can totally throw people off the rails, cause people to like leave entire industries. So it's a very maybe not stressful, but like I have to be really thoughtful about it. And it's nice to hear that she thinks I'm great. But I also have some other bosses from my past history where I try and pull from them. And I think to myself, do I do it exactly like, for example, Rhiannon? Do I do it like Harold? Do I do it, like Chris? I don't know. It's good to hear. And I hope to continue to have folks speak so positively about me, shall I say.
Okay. Well, let's do this then. Let's change gears and let's do a little true and false just to get you comfortable. I was going to do truth or dare, but I don't know you well enough to do truth or dare. Let's do true or false. Ready? True or false? Here we go. You grew up in Connecticut, but you now live in Denver.
True.
Okay. True or false? Your dad worked in sports TV for NBC.
Actually, not NBC. Sports TV, yes. He has a long career, a bunch of different places. ESPN, early days, Prime Network for those older listeners who will know what that is. Fox Sports. I did ABC in the early days. Outdoor Life Network. He's just a sports TV guy. And funny enough, my mom is the one who was sports TV, and she worked at NBC for a period of time.
Ah, okay. So that was a true-ish.
True-ish.
True or false? You're a big outdoors guy, hiking, backpacking, snowboarding. You're a wild man.
True, true.
True or false? You're obsessed with the band Fish. You've gone over to 100 concerts.
And now half of your listeners log off. Yes, that is true.
No. We said Fish. That's not that bad. We didn't say Nickelback or you know what I mean. Like you're
100
okay.
Nickelback shows would be a lot of Nickelback. Yes, I would say.
And in true or false, you studied environmental science.
True.
So let's talk about that for a little bit. When you went to study environmental science, what was the impetus to get you in that realm, in that world? Did you go right in with it, or were you like me where you went to college for a few months, a semester or two before deciding this is what I'm passionate about?
Yeah, I was really lucky. So for me, with environmental science and honestly satellites, it started in high school. Shout out Mr. Hunter at Wilton High School, Wilton, Connecticut. We were in environmental science, AP environmental science, and I first got introduced to the Landsat program, which is NASA's, at this point now, 50 plus year history of having Earth observation satellites looking at the Earth. And I was curious about science. And obviously, this was I think 2006, 2007. And so, Al Gore's talking about climate and the world in some cases is starting to wake up a little bit more about climate change. And I just got hit in the face by this like technical sort of asset and revolution of Earth observation satellites. And I said, whoa, you can use satellites that orbit the Earth to not only look at the Earth like once a day, but multiple times a day and every point on the Earth. And it just got my inner nerd kind of freaking out. My dad's always loved space. He kind of passed that on to me. And so I was like, okay, is there a way that I can kind of merge these things together? And I stepped into the University of Denver kind of pretty confident that environmental science was my path and potentially using satellites, but I didn't know yet enough. So maybe that was a good thing to just kind of throw myself fully into it. But yeah, it started for me in high school and I just kind of hit the ground running.
I think education is so needed right now. I mean, I think it's so obvious. It's right there in front of us. So when we get to talk to somebody like you who is passionate about his own education and then the education that you can spread to others, it's always a great thing. Was getting a great education important in your family? Was that, I think it's usually influenced by the parents.
Oh, massively. Massively. Yeah. My folks, lucky enough both to have college degrees. The same with most of the rest of my family. But, when we moved to Connecticut from Texas. So unfortunately, Steve, I am technically Texan. I'm just
Okay,
kidding.
we got to go. I'm going to go ahead and redistrict this podcast right now.
Oh man, no. So my mom has always, really prioritized education. And so when we moved back to Connecticut, her mom had always told her, hey, buy or rent the crummiest house you can in the nicest school district, right? And so that caused us to rent for a number of years while they kind of figured themselves out, in first New Canaan and then Wilton. And I mean, education was always tops. Like, we were not going outside and playing, definitely no video games if homework didn't get done. And it really kind of showed out. My brother and I both did quite well in high school. We had some missteps in college, I think, as many folks do. For those of us who don't take gap years, and you have kind of the first year of freedom, shall we say. But yeah, my whole family, it's always been kind of paramount, that you find something you're passionate about. And it wasn't as much about, we want you to be a doctor, we want you to be a lawyer. It was like, we want you to learn as much as you can and find something that you give a shit about, and then really lean into it.
And what's interesting about it too is that, especially in what you're doing, and we're going to get to that more in depthly because even I don't fully understand what you're doing, but you're going to educate me as well. You're constantly having to educate yourself because with the world of AI coming into things, how quickly things are moving
Oh
at a
man.
pace that, especially as we get older, our brains are not, we're not little kids who can suck up, I'm starting to learn Spanish. Un poquito, I like to say. And I probably just butchered that too. But if I was 8 or 9 years old, this would be a lot easier. So it never ends, does it?
No, it really doesn't. And like you said, I mean, AI, almost even putting that entire technical revolution aside, the satellite industry itself, even without AI, you could learn something new every day, and you could spend hours, weeks, and years like digging deeper into a specific aspect of the science. That's honestly, though, one of the reasons I love it. And I think that's why I'm so appreciative of my parents and my whole family, of like this passion for intellectual pursuit and curiosity, that if I didn't have it, I'm sure I could still be fine and make it. But I mean, that's what being in an industry like this, where you have different types of satellite sensors, right? Most people think about Earth observation and you think about what you see on Google Maps and like one of those pretty images of Barcelona or New York or London. But there is a whole lot of physics, a whole lot of computer science really kind of driving so much of that. And so the role that, Ruthie and I have, and a lot of the folks on our team, it requires us to stay on top of what's happening. But simultaneously, then we get to talk to folks and kind of expand the community around people who actually understand what can satellite technology, what can geospatial technology do for their use case. And as Ruthie's probably told you, Steve, like, much of it is focused around global development priorities and activities like conservation and regenerative agriculture, global health, so like vaccine distribution. So the funny thing is that it's, I think, easier for us to want to learn because there's this direct human impact, or at least high potential for direct human impact, and trying to help everyone around the world live, as high quality of life as possible.
Yes, and speaking of which, I'm reading this right off your LinkedIn. Remote sensing and satellite-based solutions to problems facing the global development community. It's a huge amount of words. How do you break that down for us? Because we're talking about a lot of things here. Because we're talking about science, we're talking about physics, we're talking about the weather. I mean, climate. That's got to be changing everything y'all are doing on a daily basis.
Oh yeah. And it really can take so many different, it can be in so many different flavors. So, when that statement, and it's funny you call it out, maybe I need to be a little more specific, right, on the old LinkedIn, so people don't think
Oh
I'm
no
just trying
no
to be
no
buzzwordy.
no no
No,
no!
I'm kidding.
You need,
I'm kidding.
I need a translator. Like I'm not like I mean like I do plays and I write books and I do a podcast and then I meet somebody like you and I'm like, oh crap! Like if this was Cheers, I would be Sam Malone and you're Diane Chambers. Respectfully, is what I'm saying.
Respectfully.
Highly intelligent person working in something that I know very little about. But no, but go on because I'm fascinated by all of this because this is the good that's out there that can be used, the AI that can be used for good, the technology that can be used for good.
Yeah. So, and Steve, what I'll do is I'll kind of, because I've been blessed, and I've been working in this industry since I was 21. And cough cough 35 now. So got a lot of time under my belt, and hopefully many years to come. But I'm asked constantly by grandparents, uncles, aunts, friends, Matt, what do you do? And try not to confuse me. And so and sidebar here, like I am at the um beginning stages of nerddom in remote sensing and this whole space, right? We have literal rocket scientists, physicists with multiple PhDs designing the sensors, the rocket scientists designing the actual vehicles or the satellite buses themselves. So like I find myself kind of at the intermediary between a lot of these incredibly intelligent men and women that without them, the entire industry doesn't happen. So I just always try to caveat this because my mom used to say, "Oh yeah, my son, he's like a rocket scientist," and I was like, "Mom, I am not a rocket scientist. I don't work at JPL. I don't work at NASA. We use the stuff that they launch." But sorry, Steve. Sidebar there. Just wanted to give a shout out to the real smarties that make this all work. And really, how I explain it to folks is take, for example, you are a national government and you are trying to run an under five vaccination campaign in your country. And we can zoom in and take, for example, a country that's gone through a lot of struggle that, has significant problems across the government and trust in citizens, et cetera, like South Sudan, right? So in South Sudan, if they're trying to run some sort of campaign to distribute vaccines to children under five, this would be like measles, mumps, rubella, right? Tuberculosis, common vaccines, not the quote unquote divisive vaccines that we will hopefully not touch on too much. Because Steve, I think you know where I stand there.
Oh
But
yeah, same.
the problem set, shall we say, is that the government knows that they need to reach these children with these life-saving vaccines, but they don't actually have a really quality census data set. So they don't know necessarily where people live. They don't know in what density, and they don't really know the demographics, right? And that's of course cultural, right? Depending on kind of the culture or the religion that you're living in, that can really dictate how many children will live in a home. Do you actually have grandma and grandpa living in the home, or aunts and uncles there too? And I say all of this because what we're talking about there, that's basically a demographic question, shall we say. Like we don't know where folks live, and in certain cases how to reach them. So, but we know that this campaign needs to take place. So then you think about satellites, and satellites are basically an overhead view that you can take of the world and start to estimate what population may be by seeing things on the ground, right? So, for example, you'd be able to see the number of buildings. And now with AI and better technology, you can actually then indicate, is this a building that is residential? Is this a commercial building? Is this a school? Is this a community center? It's definitely not like a press a button, go, you've detected all of these and classified them perfectly. But satellite imagery in kind of an overhead view where you have good enough resolution, you can see small enough things on the ground, you can start to count those homes, you can measure the area, and then in a given region where you're doing that, you can basically use some kind of standard math where hopefully you've done local field surveys. So those local folks can indicate to you, okay, how many people on average live in these homes? Maybe you get that from a government official, maybe you get it from an NGO, maybe you get it from citizens themselves. Then you basically have these different sort of data points. You have number of homes, the area, the average, population or kind of residency within a home. And then you can start to get to an estimate that says, okay, we expect in this area that you will have 1,000 children under the age of 5 that you need to vaccinate. And then it becomes a logistics problem, right? And so not only has the remote sensing helped you in kind of the initial assessment of how many people, which then that of course leads into how many vaccines you need. Then in certain situations, Steve, you'll need to actually then identify the route that you need to get there, right? Because we in the US and in the EU and growingly in, Japan, of course, North Korea or South Korea, not North Korea, Southeast Asia, like GIS and digital maps are improving a lot, but that is not the case in much of sub-Saharan Africa. Like, you may have roads mapped well in the capital, in the major urban centers, but when you get out to more rural villages and towns, like the actual, even just walking paths or, roads that might lead into an area are not actually like embedded in something like Waze or Google Maps. And you can use satellite imagery to make those quote unquote layers. So, like, a layer in a GIS is a road, it's a building, it's a river, it's a lake. Those are all different layers. And we are accustomed to seeing all of that looking pretty and colorized and super detailed in Google Maps. But again, when you look at these other country contexts in what we call the global south, like, that is not, those data points are not available. And so remote sensing is a stand-in to be able to basically indicate on a map where the roads are, where the walking paths are. So not only do you now have the logistical information of how many vaccines are needed, you now understand how you can actually reach them. And then do interesting things like travel time analysis. So there's vaccines that require cold storage. COVID is one of the prime examples, where the vaccine actually had to be kept at this very, very low temperature for it to remain usable. And when you're talking about these locations, like, it's not like there's just refrigerators or freezers along the way, right? Like, you have a refrigerator truck, you're driving it to a place, you need to make sure that that refrigerator truck is going to be able to keep things cool the whole way that it makes there. So it's again, it's like remote sensing in global health can so often really be this like logistical planning, implementation. And then the last thing I'd say, Steve, critically, is like the monitoring of that. And that's where digital technology is really cool as well, where not only have you done all this planning, which is called micro planning, you've gone and done the vaccine campaign using mobile applications like Survey 123, or there's some great data sets that like a company called Acros makes. They make a thing called Reveal, where you can kind of real time update the status of these campaigns so that you're actually tracking, okay, we thought it was 1,000 people. We went to every single home and we realized that it's only 850 children, right? And so not only have you then been able to update the census data so the government has a better indication of who lives where, but you're then also, able to indicate back to either if it's the government running the campaign, they know that they now have 150 extra vaccines. If it's a NGO or a philanthropy doing it, they also have that data. So, yeah, hopefully not too long-winded, my friend, but that's usually my like salvo of when my mom says, "What is remote sensing?" And I say, "We kind of do logistics for health purposes."
Right, because there's got to be a people side to this too, because you're working with so many different communities, like you were saying,
Oh yeah.
and education levels, right? And then also belief levels, as we've seen around the world. We were just talking about anti-vaxxers, all those people. And so there has to be a whole other group of people, or is it a group that you hand off your documentation, you hand off your plan, and then another group goes in and they handle the, boots on the ground aspect to it?
It totally depends, and mostly yes is what I would say, especially when it relates to health campaigns in particular, right? Because that's vaccination distribution. That can be also testing for diseases. I would say when we're looking more maybe on the agriculture side of things, we will have more of a direct hand involved. But I mean, this is I guess, and Steve, feel free to cut this, but this is a quick shout out to like the amazing work that USAID and their partners have done in some capacity. We're in a horrendous, weird state right now, but like USAID, for all, surely there were issues on funding sides and grants and whatnot, but like the benefit that they offer to the humans, to the citizens of the world that needed this help, it was. I kind of convey it, and I'm not an expert here. I've never worked at USAID, but they kind of created this like mesh thread and this mesh framework that allowed all this work to happen. And you talk about community, and that's why I mentioned them, because there would be money from the US government that was, dedicated to USAID. USAID would then, for example, say, okay, we're going to have this unit focused on tuberculosis in this region. We now want to work with a local NGO who there are people who actually live in the community or nearby. They have family members there. And we want to basically work through them to actually set up typically like they will go to some sort of community center or health center in a town and say, hey, this is where it's happening. Tuberculosis vaccine campaign is, you guys come here and you can come here over the next month. But then the NGOs, and typically it's multiple that the USAID partners with, they are the ones who are really doing, the great work of spreading that word, telling folks, hey, this is when it's happening. This is how you get there. It's going to be open from X to Y. So then it'd be those folks who have the local context, the cultural context, sometimes sharing, hopefully language, sometimes religion, and using those like person to person connections to honestly, first and foremost, just answer the questions that moms will have about, is this safe for my kid? Is this safe for me? And making sure that like we are doing our best to not have this be some force-fed approach. And again, I say we in like a much larger sense than I really should, because it's those folks, the USAID, and then their local partners who are far more like at the, shall we say, like local boots on the ground level, that without that, it would be a problem. And it's a very scary future, I would say, Steve, right now with a lot of questions still remaining.
But you bring up a really valid point, which is that this is still a community. And as a planet, we're a community. And when we create walls, that other countries are supposedly going to pay for, that they apparently never did, and then we don't finish the wall. But that's a whole other story in itself. My point being, we are all on the community of Earth together. And so you guys are fulfilling a very important piece that couldn't be figured out without you.
I mean, yeah, you're putting us on a pedestal, and I appreciate it, and I love our role. I love how we are trying to actually realize the promise of satellite and digital technology to improve the lives of everyone on planet Earth. That's what keeps me excited in the face of chaos, and able to deal with all of the bullshit that is currently being heaped on our doorsteps. And that's exactly right? Like we we have one shot at this. We have one planet. Cool. Maybe we go to Mars. That's not happening anytime in our lifetimes in any meaningful manner. And also, I love how there's this concept of like, yeah, we can live on Mars. If we can't figure out how to live on a planet that has everything that we need, and then we need to go to another one to build it, like maybe that's not the right idea first. Maybe let's get this one.
100%. Like, also work with what you have. And you have everything here.
Right. So let's maybe figure out how to do that here first, because there's just so many problems facing the world, and so many addressable problems, and problems that if we get the right people together and we get the right manufacturers and we can work with the government stakeholders and work with the community, like we can solve these things, right? Like polio should be cured in our lifetime. There is strong indication. The other one that's really cool, Steve, is guinea worm. The Carter Center has done incredible work with their country programs across sub-Saharan Africa, but historically guinea worm was all across South America as well. And to your listeners, I would say, don't Google guinea worm if you don't know about it when you're about to eat. Definitely Google it, get informed, but it's really intense. It's a really gnarly thing that's not necessarily fatal. But I say all of this because there were 3.5 million cases of this in, I believe, 1984, 1985, mid 80s. Last year, and that's 3.5 million human cases. Last year, there were 10 human cases globally. So we have not, in the history of humanity, eliminated like anything, any disease like that other than smallpox. So this would actually be like a massive, massive achievement on the scale of smallpox that's only possible through community and through coordination. And it's through, the Carter Center working heavily with the United States CDC and university programs here, but then simultaneously working with an amazing group of people these days all across sub-Saharan Africa, because Carter Center and their South American counterparts, they eradicated it and eliminated it in South America. So it's like the blueprint is there. It's really, really hard work to do this stuff, but we can achieve it. And I think that's like, I guess, I don't know, man. That's where I just think to myself, like, why don't we all want that, right? Don't we want a world without disease and without like anguish and without like pain and hunger? And I'm going to sound like a total liberal hippie, which I am because I've seen 100 fish shows, as you said. But it's also, it's not bullshit. Like there are technologies, there are now vaccines, there are, all of these capabilities that if we just can stop bullshitting, we can solve these first problems. And then honestly, man, we bring more people to the table to help do whatever's next and whatever is the next cool thing that we do as a civilization.
That's what we're trying to do here on our show. We're trying to bring people together. We're trying to remind people that there is good still out there. When we hear from people like you, that helps us a lot. Let me ask you this question, because it is our slogan for the year. It is say yes. So I want to ask you, Matt, what are you saying yes to in 2026?
Man, good question. I'm saying yes to, this will be funny, Ruthie, you'll listen to this. I'm saying yes to making sure that I am prioritizing my family and my friends more than I have been, because I've been traveling a lot with work and just working a lot of crazy hours. I'm saying yes to taking that flight to go see my grandma for her birthday that I might have just given her a phone call before, or hopping in the car to go see a friend that I might have been too tired to go see because it's Monday night and I hate doing things on Mondays because I'm tired. I need to say yes to more person to person hangs and listening and talking and smiling and laughing and having fun, because that's my medicine.
We close these shows with 3 questions. Don't panic. You know the answers. Question number 1, where do people find you? Where do people find DevGlobal to find out more information?
Sweet. Dev.Global. And quick shout out, we have an amazing partner organization, DevFreak. If we had more time, Steve, I would have been happy to dig more into them. They're a great group of folks. They're our counterparts across the Atlantic Ocean, based in Africa. They are, I think I'm going to blow their website, DevFreak Development Advisors, if you Google it. For me, I'm a bad techie. I don't have a website. I don't have a Medium page or whatever. So LinkedIn, and I don't social media anymore. I got burned out on that well before the last presidential campaign. So that's probably it.
2 more questions. Question number 1, go back to anybody, anything, anything, really. It's this. Who inspires you?
Ooh, luckily, a lot of people. A quick shout out that my mom and dad are massive inspirations. But not to be too cheesy, I will say someone else, because she is starting an amazing company with another great friend. There's a woman named Rhiannon Price. She is a former boss of mine and a mentor and a friend. I've known her for close to 10 years now. She's starting an organization. Steve, you love this. And honestly, man, might be a good person for you to talk with. The company's called Common Space. And I talked about the humanitarian uses of satellites, but I didn't bring up the fact that it can be hard to use those satellites because of cost, licensing, access issues. Rhiannon and her colleague, and also a friend of mine, Bill Greer, are starting a nonprofit and have started to try and launch a humanitarian dedicated satellite mission. And so that's just one example. Rhiannon Price is one of the most erudite, intelligent, well-spoken people I've had the privilege of knowing, let alone working with. And she inspires me all the time, inspires everyone that I've worked with. And she's really been at the forefront, I would say, of trying to push commercial satellite organizations to actually not bullshit people and to really try and help and not just use it as a PR campaign or as part of their ESR initiatives. And she did great work there, but then she realized that her efforts would be better suited to actually just say, fuck this, I'm doing it myself, and we're going to launch this satellite constellation. So huge shout out, Rhiannon and Bill and Common Space. So for everyone listening, if any of this interests you, please go check out Common Space. It's super, super cool stuff.
And the final question is not a question. It is a statement to finish any way you like. And it goes like this. Tell me something good.
Tell me something good.
So you are old enough to know that song. Keep going.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Mom and Dad made sure. I'm not. Yeah, I got all the oldies. What's good? What's good is we are not lost, right? We may have stepped off whatever path we were on, or in my opinion, we've taken just a brief detour, but the trajectory of humanity is continuing, is hurtling, honestly, in a positive direction. There are, we have taken step backs in certain things, but when you look at, hunger, for example, in India, it is reducing. Africa does still have issues, but like we are as a whole, as a civilization, we have a better ability to read. We have lower infant mortality, lower maternal mortality. Education levels outside of reading are significantly higher than they used to be. And we can get stuck in the myopic view of how is America doing. And that's important as American citizens to think about that and make sure we're doing the best for ourselves and our children and our future. But when you step back and look at it from a global perspective, like we are doing better now than we were 100 years ago. That doesn't mean to say we don't take our foot off the gas. We have a bunch of bullshit that's been happening. Freedoms are being taken away, liberties are being challenged. And it's terrifying, to be perfectly honest, but that shouldn't result in people losing the thread that what you are doing matters, and how you talk with your community and how you try to raise up your friends, your family members, your brothers, your sisters. Don't ever stop that, because the good's going to win. And I know that, and I have to believe that, that we will win out. We will make this civilization more prosperous and provide more opportunity, and hopefully get to a point where, we're talking about much more exciting and interesting things instead of, basic clean water access that we can easily solve.
Thank you, Matt, for sharing your good with us. Next time on World Gone Good.
It started as a celebration of artists who weren't like hoity-toity mainstream enough to make it to the other primary festival that happened after the war. So they created the Fringe Festival, which was more of the alt different performers. And it just became a tradition that has stayed.
These places are pressure cookers in the best way, right? Pressure makes diamonds. Being around the highest quality in the world makes you better.
And for the first time in my life, I felt like I understood that group of people who's obsessed with Burning Man. People who go and they're like, those are my people in the desert, and this is my community. And I was like, this is my community.
Every August, the Edinburgh Fringe Festival brings together the newest, brightest, and most uniquely talented performers for a full month of nonstop theater goodness. And so we are bringing together some of those very performers to talk all that's good with putting yourself out there, opening your soul to a room full of strangers, and the magic. And I say magic because one of them happens to be a magician that's going to come on the show. That comes from doing so. I can't wait for you to meet Liz Coyne, Max Davidson, Christina Libby, Brendan Lemon, and maybe even a couple more of the amazing Edinburgh talent coming your way on our next all-new episode. Until then, be good.